this morning. I appreciate Monsignor Tony. He's been very gracious. He took me to a local landmark last night. What was the name of that joint?
MCL.
Which, ironically, I love cafeterias. So it was great. Had fried chicken. If you've never been there, go there very soon. But thank you for your wonderful hospitality. He's a great guy.
Anytime.
I'm sure all of you all know that, right?
Anytime.
So, have you been there? You're laughing very hard. What's your favorite? What do you get when you go there? She doesn't go there. Monsignor, you need to...
I know.
Okay.
I've known her for years. 38.
Well, it's great to be here, and I like to begin with a little quiz. I love geography, and I belong to a very small, insignificant, nobody's heard of religious community. It's the name Glenmary Home Missioners. But I'd like to put in context exactly what we do with a small quiz. And the young man over there who's standing, or who's yawning, your first name is Del Decker. And then there's Lila, and then there's Olive. So, are you all pretty smart? Are you all humble? Yes. So, this should be an easy one. And I think probably everybody here knows the answer to this one. How many counties are there in the state of Indiana? Now, this is not The Price is Right, where you can yell out the answer to these three bright, intelligent. Do you all know the answer to that? Can you take a guess?
I have no idea myself.
Now, this is a humble man. So do you all, any of you three, just take a guess, one of you. 92. How many people think that 92 is the exact number? Well, we have a lot of intelligent people here this morning. So 92 is the exact number. So imagine the state of Indiana. Okay, so we all live in Indiana. It's great to be here. So imagine for a moment the state of Indiana. How many counties in the United States do you think have never had any, in our history, any kind of Catholic presence? It's almost double that. It's 182. So imagine, if you will, there's two states the size of Indiana in the country of the United States of America that in our history has never had any kind of Catholic presence. Now, Indiana's not the largest state, but that's a huge chunk of geography, isn't it? The mission of the Glenmary Home Missioners is to go to all those places and to begin a Catholic presence, to gather a Eucharistic community. We were founded in 1939 by Father William Howard Bishop. He was a rural pastor in Maryland, and he was always very mission-minded. And as he grew in his mission-mindedness, it grew beyond his own small little parish into the Diocese of Baltimore, into the whole rural areas. And he began to see that there were vast areas of our country where the Catholic Church never existed. And he asked himself kind of a seminal question. Now, this is never made to be in a kind of a competition with others. But he asked himself this question. This was in the 1930s. He saw this large area of the United States where the Catholic Church had not been present. And he said, how is it that we send missionaries? Now, when most of us think of mission, we think of places that are far away, people who eat different food, who speak different languages, whose cultures are different, who dress differently, who live far away from where we are. And so he asked himself, how can we send missionaries across oceans to different continents, and we ignore the fact that we have a mission need here in our own country? And so in the 1930s, he had the permission of Archbishop McNicholas in Cincinnati, and he began a mission society in Cincinnati, Ohio, that had a singular purpose. And the singular purpose was to go to those mission areas, mostly the South Appalachia region, where there were few or no Catholics, where there was a high level of poverty, and to begin a Catholic Eucharistic presence. And so since 1939, that is exactly what we have done. And in those years, and probably 80 plus years, we've started, and our goal always is, once the community is thriving, we return it to the care of the diocese, and we move on to the next area. We've started over 150 churches, 150 counties in the South and Appalachia doing exactly that. Now, you all know what's going to happen here in July of 2023. And there's a man up there. You're going to have, I love Indianapolis. I come here every year for NCYC. I just get energized by it. I know you kind of look at me and you think he's a real laid-back guy, but I'm not. I get really amped about this. And so I love coming to your convention center here. We always have a vocation booth. But here in 2023, July, in Indianapolis, Indiana, your hometown, you're going to have something called the Eucharistic Revival. In Glenmary, we only have about 50, 60 people in our community. We are going to be deeply involved. And if you can imagine that people are going to be pilgriming here on a pilgrimage from all over the United States to focus and to lift up the importance of the Eucharist. And why Glenmary is so excited about that is because that is precisely what we do in our place, in our missions. We go and we begin a Eucharistic community in places where there's never been. And just to give you an example, during the height of the lockdown, we started 3 new Eucharistic communities, small, real small, 10, 15 people, in 3 counties in central Tennessee that in their history had never had any kind of Catholic presence. Hartsville is the name of one town, Carthage is the name of the second town, and Livingston is the name of the third town. And just to show you kind of the difference, we sent a priest to one, we sent a brother to the other, we have brothers and priests, and we sent one of our lay co-workers to the third place. And they have been very successful in gathering the people. Now, just a bit of a flashback. We went into a place called Rutledge, Tennessee in 2011. It's in the middle of nowhere. And if you're not aware of it, rural areas are in desperate, desperate need. They're dying. Unless you're near a place like Indianapolis, a rural community, they're dying. Hospitals are closing. They're losing population continuously. So we went to this little place, Rutledge, Tennessee, and we first were we were in a little strip mall. A lot of times you'll see Protestant churches in these little strip malls. That was us. St. John Paul II Catholic Church, or whatever you want to call it, chapel. And in 2020, we began to build a church. All the parishioners, there's probably about 50 or 60 parishioners now, all the parishioners in that place all helped in and built this small little church in Rutledge, Tennessee. And one of the most remarkable things, this year, I think this is just, and I think Monsignor would back me up on this one, I think this is remarkable. So we have a church of about 50, 60 people, tops. At the Easter Vigil, 28 people were welcomed into the church. 28 people. I mean, I want to shout that to the rooftops. Whole families from this tiny seed and presence of what they have done over the years. And in all of our missions, there are 58 in total. And that's the whole purpose of the Eucharistic revival, isn't it? To show us the precious gift that we have in the blessed Eucharist, that Jesus feeds us with his body and his blood. And that is our mission as Glenmary Home Missioners. Some of you had a magazine I gave to you. By the way, this is not the First Baptist Church, in case you're a little confused. One has this picture on it, and the other has the other picture of the families. So if you get this one, I thought a couple years ago that a question I asked, and so I wrote an article about this. It's what I love about being Catholic. And I think that's a question for all of us, where our church is very accessible, whereas in many places the church is not accessible. So, I apologize if I've spoken too long. It is a great honor for me to be here and to share the message, not of Glenmary, but of who we are and what we do, and most importantly, how we mission to share the Eucharist with many who hunger and thirst. There's a second collection, I believe, at communion, and if you can be generous, please do so. I'm the president of the Home Missioners, and I promise you anything that you donate to us will be put to good use and direct use in our missions. God bless you, and thank you very, very much.